Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game that you knew was coming, ladies and gentlemen. You didn't know when, you didn't know where, you didn't know who, but I know who you hoped it wasn't. And that's exactly what it ended up being tonight. Really interesting conversation I had with the designer of our K&R logo heading into the game about the potential for exactly what happened here tonight. Let me see if I can't find it. Said something along the lines of how irritated would the Jets fans in the building be if the undefeated streak comes to an end in their own building to a round of applause and cheers for the opposition, which is exactly what happened. Maybe insult to injury is the hats thrown on the ice for John Tavares after the hats were thrown on the ice for one Kyle Connor, and I don't want to say undeservingly so, but when it was changed afterwards, and that was a lot of hats thrown on the ice for what turned out not to be a hat trick. Regardless, phenomenal night for Kyle Connor. It's interesting. Also on Twitter tonight, I was having a conversation with someone because I had posted going into the second period that there should be an expectation that the Winnipeg Jets were going to push back in this game. It's what we should expect from them. Here, I'll read the quote. Slow start's pretty much the norm for the NHL Jets this season. So so are bounce back second periods. It's what we should expect here tonight. Now, it's funny. Charles Langelier said, does pessimistic Renny even exist anymore? And I thought, pessimistic, Renny? I don't know that I've ever been pessimistic in my life. That doesn't sound like anything that I would do. What I did say was, hey, when the team gives me reason to be, if this continues tonight, I'll pull out pessimistic Renny for the K&R opening just for you, Charles Langelier. And while I would like to, and don't get me wrong, there's things to talk about here about where the Winnipeg Jets need to get better, because there's some things going on that are clearly unsustainable, even though they start 8-0. I can't really beat up on the Jets. I'm going to go to the phone one last time, because the next time you see me, you're going to see me opening up the game for Wednesday night hockey when the Winnipeg Jets play the Detroit Red Wings. A game we thought there was going to be a pretty good chance that the Jets would be trying to play for the record for the greatest opening in NHL history, 10-0, held by two teams, one of them being the 93-94 Toronto Maple Leafs. So they protected that on this night. But I was talking quite a bit with my producer before this game, or during this game, and he was kind of lamenting when they went down 4-0, that that this was over. And I'd say, well, hey, not so fast with this team. One bad here, I said, they feast on teams that do exactly what the Leafs are starting to do. They take that penalty, one bad penalty, they get scored on. And what did the Leafs do after that? They followed up by taking a penalty the very next shift. Momentum has clearly turned. Next thing you know, it's a game here, right? So one of the things, I don't want to get too deep into all of this, because I'm talking a lot about the stuff that was going on the phone. And hey, listen, unless one of you wants to break into Rennie's phone, you don't need to read all that kind of stuff. The long and the short of it for me on this night is the lasting impression I'm left with is a Winnipeg Jets team that I think played against a team that was a step above what they've played so far this season. So all those people out there, if you heard me, I went on Kipper and Bourne and talked earlier on today. I don't take anything away from the Winnipeg Jets and what they did up to this point, but I do think you're crazy if you're not looking at the schedule and saying the Winnipeg Jets played an Edmonton Oilers team that was not ready for the start of the season. Then they played 7 teams that missed the playoffs last year. That doesn't necessarily mean they should be 8-0. It doesn't necessarily mean that the schedule is one that they should have gone 8-0, but it is the kind of schedule that you would look at and say the Winnipeg Jets should be making hay at this time. Now, a lot of those games were close, tight games. A lot of them won in overtime against these teams that we're talking about that were outside of the playoffs looking in. I don't look at this as a no start for the Winnipeg Jets. I think that the Winnipeg Jets played a team that had a skill level outside the Edmonton Oilers, who forgot to show up in game 1. They played a Toronto Maple Leafs team that had a skill level high above what they've played so far this season, and they didn't adjust well to it. They like to roll on teams, trap them in their own end, and the Toronto Maple Leafs weren't going to allow that to happen tonight. Now, did the Winnipeg Jets give up? No, not at all. That's one thing to take away on this night. They pushed back into this game. They made it interesting. It came very close. One thing we're going to have to talk about is the way that they did it was with the extra man on the ice. This is something that we're looking into here. Nick Lynham and I were chatting quite a lot during the game, but right now the Winnipeg Jets are proving time and time again that they're winning games with the power play. They got back into this game with the power play, but at 5-on-5, it's starting to become somewhat concerning. The Winnipeg Jets seem to find their way into games, find their way into winning games with the power play, but they're finding themselves having to do so because their 5-on-5 hockey is not matching the majority of the teams that they play so far this season. It's a concern, something we need to talk about. And I know a guy, you may know a guy too, who would be great to talk about it with. The man with the best music in the business, folks. Here comes Kenny. Here's our guy. And Ken, I'll tell you this, the Winnipeg Jets are not undefeated on the season anymore, but you are in the way that you're dressing on the season. I love the chocolate brown, love the tie.
Hey, buddy, it's maroon. It's maroon.
Well, it looks chocolate brown from here. Don't correct the host when he's in the middle of something, Ken. You know better than that. Because I was on my way to saying if you want to strike a pose like Ken or like Renny on this night with the subtle blue, the nice red. Well, there's actually blue embroidery, not embroidering, embossed. It's embossed in there. I don't know. It's a red-blue combo. This is another one of those ones that Frankie's like, just shut up, do what I tell you to. He doesn't talk to me like that, but he should probably do what I tell you to do, and things are going to turn out great. And that's exactly what happened, because I went on down to Vittorio Rossi and talked with Frankie and the boys. As should you. Walk in there, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, let's just launch right into it. What'd you see on this night?
Yeah, not a great effort from the Jets. Certainly 5-on-5 play, very poor. Didn't skate very well, struggled with defensive zone coverage. Special teams got them back into the game, but they've been kind of, you mentioned it, they were backing into games at times. They didn't, again, Scott Arniel was trying to be polite, but you could tell there was a lot of disappointment in what he saw in front of him this evening. Points for battling back, no doubt, but I mean, we knew that we knew the Leafs were going to be ready for this game, right, Sean? I mean, the Jets just weren't ready for the level of opponent that they saw tonight. And again, it's going to happen over the course of 82 games. There are going to be games teams don't like, and this will be one of them. And again, I actually, I'm not sure about you, but I actually quite like the tongue-in-cheek tone that Josh Morrissey had in the post-game, saying that, they would have loved to have been the first 82-0 team, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm actually okay with that tone. The Jets were disappointed in themselves. You could tell by the way that Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey both spoke with us, certainly in the way that Scott Arniel talked about the loss itself and the things they struggled with. So again, is this a big deal? We'll see. I don't think it's a big deal. The Jets are 8-1. Are they going to have to raise their level when they play a higher level of competition? Absolutely. They had a poor period in the first period against Seattle, bounced back nicely, but they just, as poorly as they played today, Sean, they actually were, a shot away from making the game interesting, right? I mean, they got it to a 2-goal deficit and had a chance to kind of get right back into it. And I think one of their power, or even before when it was 4-1, they had a power play where they, had couple opportunities that didn't go their way. Then they did get it to 2 goals, and then they just couldn't defend well enough. We'll get through a lot of the things. I don't have to go to the buffet too long on this one. We'll dig in a little bit deeper on a lot of the issues. We know that the folks have a lot of things that they're discussing and throwing around already. But yeah, full marks to the Leafs. They lost a tough one the other night. They did force overtime, but bad turnover by Austin Matthews on the overtime winner by Pasternak. Today there were no such issues for the Leafs, except a little bit of a leaky penalty kill. So
a little bit.
Sorry, a lot of a lot leaky. Yes, sorry, a lot leaky on that. So
it's interesting. I was on Kipper and Bourne beforehand, and that was one where they kind of pointed out A, like how good the Winnipeg Jets were doing on the power play, but B, how poorly the Leafs were doing on the power play. I was kind of not surprised, but it was one of those things where it was like, well, those guys know what they're talking about with that because of the way the Toronto Maple Leafs handled the pressure with the extra man tonight. It seemed almost easy for the Winnipeg Jets on this night to handle and to find that passing lane, and not even just that passing lane, but the kind of cross crease passing lane. It kind of reminded me of the playoffs last year, how the Avs seemed to be able to just every single time find that cross ice passing lane that doesn't give the goalie much of a chance. Because I thought the Leafs goaltender was great on this night. I thought he was really
very good
for the most part. The ones that kind of went in didn't seem to have much of an opportunity. But I guess before we dig too deep, how much do you take away on a night like this where the final score is 6-4? One team had 5 regular strength goals. The other team had 4 power play goals. Like you said, they're one away from making it interesting. And they don't ask how, they ask how much, right? But I think this is a night we should ask how, like the Jets got back into the game, how, and how much do you take away from the Jets making it close like this, and in saying, you know what, it's not that big of a deal of a loss. They came close, they made a push, all these kind of things. Or is this something that should bring a little bit more concern to the top of Jets fans' minds?
Yeah, the 5-on-5 play was poor for the majority. Scott O'Neill told us quite bluntly, he said their team had 2 scoring chances through 40 minutes of play. And that's not good enough under any circumstance. I know what you're saying. 2 of them are technically power play, 2 of them are 6-on-5. One's a delayed penalty, one's an empty net, or 6-on-5 with the goalie pulled.
Delayed penalty at a 6-on and the goalie pulled.
Yeah. Right. So, technically those goals even strength goals, even though we know there was an extra man on the ice. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's their even strength play was poor. Is it a sign of things to come? Not necessarily. We need to see more of it. I thought in a lot of ways the Jets 5-on-5 play had been a lot better on a good chunk of that road trip. Certainly, for the majority of time. But even strength play wasn't good enough. But I know that, again, and I'm not trying to rile people up here, but this isn't just one line. Like, this isn't, you can't just point and say, well, hey, Mark Scheifele's line is struggling. Do they need to be better at 5-on-5? Absolutely, yes. They know it, you know it, I know it. But the Jets struggled. All 4 lines struggled at 5-on-5 today. It wasn't just, that 55 line got hemmed in their own zone all game. Like, I don't see it that way. And I'm not just defending them to the end of the earth. Yes, they need to generate a little bit more for sure. Today, we talked so much, Sean, in the first 8 games about how good Neil Pionk and Dylan Samberg have been as a pairing, and they have been very good as a pairing. Today was not their night. They were -5. People can say whatever they want about not liking plus minus, Sean. When you are on the ice for 5 goals against, in a game, even strength goals, it's been a tough night. There's no disputing that. And there were some uncharacteristic turnovers by both of those defensemen. Now, again, I understand that the Scheifele line was on for one of those turnovers. And again, people are just quick. Oh, well, look, Scheifele's line is out there again. There's nothing a forward could do when a puck pops out in the slot to William Nylander, outside of covering that player. But the defensive posture, you're not expecting a turnover in that situation. So, anyways, I didn't think any of the four lines were very good at 5-on-5, and Scheifele's line is included in that. But at the same time, I'm all for the fact they tried to reunite Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde in the third period. Did it lead to some, magic? They had a couple chances, sure. I've got no problem with them trying them again in a game. I mean, if they want to try it right out of the gate, I'm not sure what Scott Arniel is going to do. I would think he's going back to the original lines and just saying this is a one-off, but we'll see. If they want to try that line out, great. Sean, I addressed this issue in our mailbag on Sunday. Yes, I'm familiar with the statistics, but I'm also going to remind the small sample size folks, and I am, this is what I said. There's plenty of evidence to suggest the combo of Connor and Scheifele are battling to get on the positive side. Last year, they had 17 games together with Gabriel Velarde. To me, 17 games last year and 9 this year. Those 26 games, I don't think is a large enough sample size to say they're going to constantly be on the losing side of that battle. Does that mean those other guys can't do well together? No, it doesn't mean that they can't do well together. We had evidence where they were excellent. The line that was together in the third, they had an unbelievable stretch from around December 10th or 12th until Christmas time. And then they did almost nothing after that offensively. So do I think they could also get a longer leash? Absolutely. But I don't think this is as simple. Like a lot of people saying, flip Connor and Ehlers around and the Jets are a wagon. Like the Jets were 8-0 already. Can they be better? That we don't know until we see it for a longer stretch. I'm totally fine with that. But I also would say too, and I think you agree, Sean, Kyle Connor's playing really good hockey right now. If you're flipping anybody out of the first line, it's probably Velarde based on the first 9 games. Don't you think?
It's such a tricky thing. And again, I had a long conversation with Nick Lynham about this. It's so tricky because there's real conversations to be had about how that top line is handling 5-on-5 minutes right now. It's not good. They're getting waxed. And yet I think I had this conversation maybe I talked about it on Kipper and Bourne earlier on, or maybe I talked about it on Winnipeg Sports Talk earlier on today. I'm a big pacing guy. I believe a coach's job is to get guys into the flow of the game. And I hate to say this, but having that line go out and get scored on, or it sounds kind of funny because it's like we're going to have this line create a problem that they solve later in the game. This line's going to go out and they're going to allow the other team to score and put us in a hole, and then they're going to score us out of the very hole that they create. But that's what has been happening for that line so far this year. And it's worked every night up until tonight. And then it almost worked again tonight. They get absolutely waxed at 5-on-5. But how is the idea that those guys play on a line together and they're all part of the power play and that they're clicking on the power play at this ridiculous clip? I see that they're connected, right? Do I think it's ideal? Guys, let's go out and just constantly get waxed at 5-on-5 and then come in like a white knight and save everyone from the problem that you've created. I think there's got to be a better way, but I think it's hard to go in a different direction when Kyle Connor is looking like he's going to score 50, 60 goals this year right now. And how hard is it to say, we need to break him up with Mark Scheifele, who's been at the very center of almost every key game-winning goal so far this year. I know Velarde's not going well. It's just tricky. It's not easy, right? It's easy to sit back and say, hey, the numbers say this, these guys aren't going, break them up, right? But as a coach, you're sitting here and you're looking at an undefeated until tonight team out here that is constantly getting put over the top by these very same guys who are your most concerning line when it comes to 5-on-5. I don't think there's easy answers here. I think the tiebreaker right now, Ken, is the major tiebreaker is that they're winning. I think it would take a significant stretch of losing for the coaches to say, okay, this does not work. It's not working. We need to go in a different direction. Because right now the tiebreak is them winning the way they are, but the tiebreak is also the fact that we know that Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor want to play together, and so if those guys are out there saying we're winning you games left, right, and center, we're showing up at the biggest moments of those games, and we're scoring game-winning goals. What else do you want from us? And as a coach, I think it's hard in those moments to say, well, sure, but you're actually causing problems and your 5-on-5 play isn't where you want it to be and blah, blah. And those guys are saying, we're stars. Our job is to pull this thing out of the fire, and we're doing it time and time again. What else do you want from us? Just do what we want to keep us happy. And that's where I think that this block is so tough to move with the Winnipeg Jets, because I 1,000% agree. And I do think that this is the kind of thing that rears its head in the playoffs. Now, maybe right now you buy yourself some time. Maybe you coach this line. Maybe you try and get this line playing better defense and keep them scoring and have them start playing better at 5-on-5. But if you can't fix that, this is the kind of problem, Ken, that I think starts to pop up in the playoffs. And maybe one of the explanations why this Jets team year after year seems to find a way to do it in the regular season, but then these kind of things maybe get exposed in the playoffs. And that's where we should be looking for the answers to why the Jets seem to keep falling flat on their face during the playoffs.
Yeah, sure. And again, I have the stats. I mean, people that are, oh, you're ignoring everything. Yeah, I understand. Vilardi, Scheifele, Ehlers, they outscored their opponents 16-6 last year. A lot of that damage happened before Christmas, as I said. The Jets with Connor, Scheifele, and Ehlers, they outscored their opponents 5-1. So, could they try that trio as well? Absolutely, they could. Then there's going to be questions about who's doing the retrieving, who's getting the puck. Those guys can forecheck, but they don't do some of the digging that Gabe Vilardi does, right? So that's what the coach, that's what the coach is balancing with, Sean, right? I mean, yes, there have been times like that game against the Flames a few years ago. That line was absolutely on fire. They're out skating their opponent. High danger chances everywhere. But, then they also have the same sort of issues in their own end at times. So anyways, there's been lots of production from those guys. But hey, like we said, that line, if they want to be together in April, Sean, if not sooner, they're going to have to be better together at 5-on-5. There's no disputing that. I'm just not certain that automatic flip, like people think Ehlers for Connor. Right now, Kyle's playing well enough to be a first-line player. There's no disputing that either right now. So for me, I also think that, moving Vilardi with Cole Perfetti is not a demotion in the sense of the word itself. I think that Gabe Vilardi could really help unlock some things with Cole Perfetti, quite frankly. So again, I also understand coaches don't want to have all, fast, everything on the line either. And you need guys to do some of the dirty work and win board battles and all those other things. So anyways, this is something that will sort itself out over time. And for those people who think that I'm not criticizing Scheifele and Connor, I said it loud and clear. If they want to be together in the playoffs, they need to get a little bit better on the ledger. It can't be as much of a disparity as it is right now. That's a fact. Though, what the ideal combinations are, they will show themselves over time. But right now, I don't think Kyle Connor should be moved off the top line. I am all for trying Ehlers there in that spot at times. But right now, I wouldn't move. I wouldn't do the flip flop that people are calling for, even though they tried it in the third period.
I gotta say, I admire the courage of Winnipeg Jets fans having this conversation at this time. I don't know how many fan bases would look at a team that started this way, 8-0, almost came back in a game tonight, and call for what could be considered like fairly sweeping changes over the course of like this early in the season, something that would entirely change up. A lot of people are like, hey, it's working, don't fix it. I admire this because I do think that it's a problem. I think it's a problem. Nick Lineman said he thinks this is going to pop up in November, given the schedule. I do think that this is something that you got to get squared away. I have a lot of admiration for Jets fans who can say, we're great right now. We keep winning. We can be better. And if it means, here, this is a great one by Neil Terrio. It says, we banked 16 points. They need to work on success for the end of the season, not now. Special teams have been money. Now you tinker 5-on-5. All that matters is getting in. Then it matters. I mean, I have tons of admiration for fans who think like this, because so many fans would just go, we're number one, and leave it at that. Jets fans are thinking their way through problems. I have tons and tons of admiration for it. I will say this. I'm going to go with this right now. Alex99, who said that he rarely disagrees with me. I disagree with this one. He said here, look at the first goal. 4 loose pucks all went off a Leaf stick before the puck went in the net. It's one of those games. I think Alex is trying to say here that the Jets, it was just the hockey gods turned against them here. We know what it looks like when the hockey gods turn for you. It happened for the Jets in the last game. The Jets, in my opinion, were lucky to only be down as much as they were in the first period. They got absolutely dominated in that period by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Alex, if you're trying to make it sound like this is just one of those nights where the bounces didn't go the Jets' way, that is earning you, my friend, an invite to Renny's Arctic Spas hot tub in the backyard, because I'll tell you this, Alex, there's no such thing as a cold take in an Arctic Spas hot tub. Head on down to their showroom where you can see everything they have. They've got the Spa Boy package. It's set it and forget it. Get a hold of Dustin. Tell him Renny specifically sent you. You can maybe tell him that Kenny sent you as well, but Dustin is the main man who helps with everything there. Like I said, Ken, I loved it. First time I was talking with Dustin about us coming on the podcast, one of the people browsing the showroom walked up and said, hey, how do I get the Kenny and Renny discount? So maybe do that. Go ahead down there and say, hey, where's Dustin? And the first thing you should say to him is, how do I get the Kenny and Renny discount? He's the guy who can do it for you if he does it for you. Something else here I wanted to bring up right here. I want your take on this, Ken. Sparky says, Jets can't handle teams that process puck pressure. Grit, size, skill, lacking skill is there. Grit missing. Reminds me of the Avs. Now, I'm going to say it like this. The way this game looked different from every other game that the Jets played so far this year is, and I thought Chris Tanev, who you in the past have talked about, or you've been an advocate for the Jets to go get him or get a defenseman like him. On this night, there was no panic from Chris Tanev. There was a lot of times he felt pressure and he just skated with the pressure and skated his way out of it. They quite often tonight I saw would get the Jets to overload on one side of the ice because that's how the Jets forecheck. And then they would just throw it across the ice to a wide open Leafs player who would skate it out easily. There's a couple things here. One person was suggesting that maybe Arneal got out coached on this night, but that could be another conversation. Let's have that one afterwards here. But I'm interested in this idea because the one thing that I've always noticed about the Jets is if they can't hem a team in like they do and just grind them down, it's almost like once the other team breaks through that, it's like the Jets don't know how to handle playing a team that's on their heels all game. The Leafs clearly on their toes all game. Do you think there's anything to be said here that the kind of team that the Leafs are challenges the Jets in a way that tonight, for the most part, they couldn't handle, and maybe as a roster, it's difficult for them to handle?
Well, I'd put it this way. If you don't skate, you're going to have difficulty with the Leafs because they're a fast team. If you're not going to be, successful on the forecheck, you're not going to cause a disruption. Like what we know, the Leafs historically with this core four have not been a good defensive team. But if you don't make them play in their own end, you're not going to see the warts, right? So the Jets got into this game with special teams because they didn't have any pressure at 5-on-5.
Sure, but the question is, if you think about the Avalanche last year, and we became a story throughout the series as it went on, Cale Makar, we think of that when he went end to end and he scores that goal. It was just too often that the Colorado Avalanche were just able to break the forecheck and skate it out of their zone. So I guess the question becomes, I get it, and I think you kind of almost made the point that I'm trying to make here right now. If the Jets aren't hemming them in their own zone, then all of a sudden you're tackling a team that's always playing offense. But is that maybe the teams that the Jets really can't handle? Because if we can't pin you in your own zone, we don't really know what to do if the game is constantly played in our end of the rink.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, they've done a better job of limiting high danger chances. They just didn't do a good job today. So, I mean, the Oilers are a team that is incredibly good in transition, but the Jets actually did a good job against them in the neutral zone. So, and again, I understand that's the opener and everything else, but if you're not skating, if you don't have your legs against the Leafs, you're not going to be successful. And was it obvious that their mobile defensemen were able to get easy exits? Absolutely, yes. Am I willing to say that that's going to happen against every team that has a strong defense core? Absolutely not. I mean, we need more evidence before we're going to make that declaration. Are we going to declare that it was difficult tonight and that could be a trend that we're going to watch for? Absolutely. But I don't think that the last 4 games against Colorado and tonight against the Leafs say that the Jets can't have success as a stifling team. I mean,
isn't that the question though?
Well, they literally gave up the fewest goals in the NHL last year, Sean.
Right, and then went in and got absolutely shell shocked in the play. I guess this is my question. So we talked about it last year. There was a certain segment of the tail end of the season. We talked about it endlessly on this show where the Jets were not beating playoff teams. They were not beating the upper echelon teams, but they were consistently beating the below the line playoff teams, right? And so if you take a look at this season, it's a super small sample size, but they've got 7 wins against last year's below playoff teams. They're 1 for 2 against teams above the playoff line. And we all know that version of the Edmonton Oilers in the first game was not the Edmonton Oilers. So isn't that the question that has to be asked and answered? Is it that a certain level of puck moving, skilled team is just maybe not going to allow the Jets to lean on them the way the Jets need to lean on teams to succeed? And if they can't, then it's basically their Achilles heel and it exposes them.
Well, if we're into game 50 plus, then sure. In game 9, we can obviously talk about it. Of course, it's a concern. I don't see that as a declarative statement I would be willing to make today. If you want to make it, no problem. But I'm not willing to go there just yet. This was one of the games where their own defense core struggled and the team struggled defensively to defend. That's true. That all of that is true. I mean, the Jets are going to have to play better against teams above the line. But I mean, the Minnesota Wild are currently a very good, last year, the non-playoff team. This year, they don't have a lot of regulation losses. And the Jets won the game 2-1 and were quite good defensively. So I need to see more before I'm ready to make that kind of a statement.
Yeah, I want to make it clear. I'm not saying that right now, but and you can tell people are getting really like choked that I'm saying this, and I get it. You don't want me telling you that the boogeyman is hiding in the closet or anything like that. To me, this is the question that has to be answered this year. Like all this, them winning in the regular season and all these kind of things. To me, I've said this before. Everything I look at with the Jets this year, I look at down the line and how they're going to be able to succeed, right? People are saying, Julie Sue, of course, is saying it's game 9, chill, all this kind of stuff. Don't bring up bad things or bad thoughts or whatever. I think that this is the question the Jets need to answer. Someone said this, I think it's, where are we? Doug Henderson says, we got whipped against the Avs. I haven't got a good explanation to what happened. I actually think we've put up good explanations to what happens. I think that that's the thing. That's the question the Jets need to answer. So on a night like tonight, when they face a high-skilled team with defense that were able to move the puck, these are the times to ask these questions. Maybe those are the games that the Jets need to show they've learned the lesson over what they did last year, because again, this is one of those nights where the Jets didn't look like the Jets. It's easy to say they didn't have their fastball, they didn't show up, they didn't skate very hard. It's all the Jets' fault that they lost tonight and nothing the Leafs did. I'm just popping in the idea that maybe what we saw tonight is a way that the Jets struggle just because this is their roster and this is who they are and this is what they struggle against.
Right, and that's totally fine. And yes, the regular season does not matter. What they do in the playoffs is how we will judge this team. But one really poor game out of 9, I'm not willing to make that kind of assertion quite yet. And again, I'm 100% with you that they have to answer that question. So if this becomes more of a problem, leading into a quarter of the season or a quarter to half, then absolutely. And we're not going to try to sweep this under the rug by any stretch. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, the Jets, now let's watch how they respond. I mean, yes, and I know that that's a way that I always am looking for how a team responds, where they play very well or very poorly or somewhere in the middle. So, when they don't have a forecheck, then it makes very difficult on them. We've said this for years. The Jets, when they play fast, are a team that disrupts play in all 3 zones. Today, they didn't disrupt play in any of the 3 zones. And when you do that against a skilled team, and Sean, here's the other part about when they play the Leafs, or any team plays the Leafs. If you're not physical against them when you don't have your legs, you're not going to be effective. And it's hard to be physical when you're not getting there. And today, the Jets didn't get there at all. They didn't make life difficult for their defense. So, anyways, it's... Good stuff, Maul. Good stuff.
Maul's in creating havoc. I love to see it. Hey, why don't you give?
I've criticized plenty. I mean, pairing was -5. They were bad.
Sweet Lou, give him a shout out. Sweet Lou.
Folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971. We're at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community.
You know what, Ken? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give you the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, because you can't be letting Maul get in your head and take you off your game like that. Maul, you know what he does. You know what he's here for. He's here to throw a little bit of lava, stick a dynamite over the hills or something like that, or a grenade. He got you on that one, Ken. You got to stay focused. You got to stay focused, and that's why Ken gets the Pristine Roofing call on this night. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you call to get down to your house for all your roofing, siding, exterior needs. He'll tell you what needs to be done, and he'll tell you how Pristine Roofing is going to do it. You could also call Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663. That's the Pristine Roofing wake-up call on the night here, Kenny. Okay, let's dive into Neil Pionk here on this one. Neil Pionk busting out. I don't know if he still is, but went into this game second in the NHL in scoring. We've talked about him and Sandberg, how well they've played together. There's been some nights, though, where it seems like defensively things are getting a little bit loose there tonight. Most definitely one of those nights. What are you seeing in the balance of Neil Pionk emerging as an offensive force, but putting up some minuses as of late?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the offense is excellent, and the Jets, since Rick Bowness arrived 3 years ago, they wanted more offense from the defense. So when you can put up 10 points in 9 games as a second pairing defenseman who plays on the second power play and not the first, that's a positive. I thought that for the majority, some people, Blake Grist is saying that, since game 3, Pionk hasn't played well. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I would say that his play has deteriorated a little bit the last couple games, for sure. There have been some hiccups. Is it a matter of, again, if you played 6 or 7 games out of 10 that were very good, I'm willing to give the player the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, you have to recognize that, nobody is going to, Neil Pionk is harder on himself than anyone in the chat room could be on him. So he'll be sour about this game today. There's no doubt about that. Some of those, The one backhand play, obviously he wasn't looking to pass it into the slot. No player is ever looking to do that. So, Neil needs to play better. He'll be the first to say that. Dylan Sandberg needs to play better. He would be the first to say that also. I thought the third pairing, wasn't particularly good for parts of the game today. But the first pairing wasn't as good as it usually has been either. So this isn't a point at one player and they're the reason why the game went south. But in terms of Pionk specifically, Sean, like I said, I would give him probably a pretty good grade in 6 or 7 of the 9 games. And whether you're on the first pairing or the second pairing, that's a pretty good grade. But at the same time, we know what happens when Neil Pionk gets into difficulty or when he doesn't play as well as he would like to. There's chaos in the defensive zone. Today, there was chaos in the defensive zone for both he and Dylan Sandberg. And we've said this before. For Dylan Sandberg, he is taking on a massive increase in ice time. When you are playing an extra 5 minutes usually against the top 6 players on the other team, those players know what they're doing. They're going to force mistakes at times. And I would say for the most part, Sandberg has handled the minutes well, but there have been times when, again, I'm not saying he got exposed in those minutes. I'm saying he made mistakes. The best players in the league make mistakes, and so do players that are taking on a bigger role. So, how are they going to respond to tough outings? That's the next challenge. And the old Jets team needs to be better in the next game. And if you put up a -5 in a game and we're on the ice for 5 even strength goals against, you're going to want to be better. So I would say that, again, and I'm not going to say this as an excuse, but Sean, I've talked about this as being a factor last year. Today is the 1-year anniversary of Adam Johnson's tragic passing. So if Neil Pionk was thinking about his best friend today and his, things didn't go as well as he had hoped, again, whether that's giving him the benefit of the doubt or however way you want to describe it, I would say that, I would say that folks should maybe be a little, you can definitely criticize, but I would say that to just be careful where you're coming from until you've gone through something like that. It's pretty hard to know how you would personally react. So again, criticize how he played, no doubt about it. He didn't play well, but this is a guy who probably had a little bit of a distraction in his life today. And again, I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm saying that as maybe part of perspective when we talk about a guy who's played pretty well up to this point, just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's hard for me to follow that up. So I'm going to just kind of focus on this. Sparky, I think, is absolutely rocking it today. He says the Jets were easily pushed off the puck. I'll say this. There's plenty of examples if you'd go and watch the tape on this game of Leafs forwards getting in on the puck, giving a little jostle, but at the same time, it's kind of, what it reminded me of, Ken? It reminded me of those football teams that target the football, right? Those teams that aren't just, defenses in football. So those teams that aren't just going out and trying to tackle the guy, they're trying to tackle and put the top of their helmet right on the point of the football, or they're trying to give a little punch with the arm as they drag the player with the ball down. And I felt like that was really kind of throwing the Jets for a little bit of a loop tonight. They were getting caught in their end a little bit more. And the interesting part about it is it seemed like a lot of one-on-one battles. Like when the Jets tie teams up in their own zone, it's because they overload, right? They've got 3 players going in, creating a wall. They've got the defender on the strong side holding the line there, and they've got the other side forward kind of floating so that if they ring it around, he's got plenty of time to get there. It kind of seemed tonight like Toronto was just kind of going one in, and having a real doing a real good job with that. I thought Dylan Sandberg was kind of struggling with that on this night. Pionk as well. It somewhat reminded me of both of their performances in the playoffs last year against the Colorado Avalanche. Again, it's why I don't want to bring it back to this. It's why I ask the question about the kind of level of skill and those kind of things, because I think it's a cop out to just look at this and say they weren't on tonight. I think you have to look at the teams that the Jets struggle against. I know it's a new team, but it's a team that plays the same as it did last year. I take a look at this tonight. I think, and it's something I want to talk about the question basically someone brought up: did Arneal get out coached on this night? I will say, if you take a look at how often, I think I counted 3 plays where the Toronto Maple Leafs had an odd man rush and they dumped the puck. Like, they dumped the puck. They were so committed to getting the Jets defensemen to turn around and get their skates pointed in the opposite direction that they were giving up odd man rushes to do so, because I think they felt they were better off and more likely to score if they could get the puck and work within the zone. A lot of getting the puck in behind them and alleviating the pressure was when the Jets did actually have an opportunity to try and trap them in their own zone. The Leafs would always put one of their forwards up at the red line, and they would essentially ice the puck past that forward, and that forward would set his stick down and knife it down to negate the icing. It's just a quick way of getting it from our zone to your zone. Now the heat's on you in behind your net. What do you take away tonight? Like, if maybe the Jets didn't have their fastball, maybe when I talk
There's no
about,
maybe.
yeah, when I talk about them struggling, well, no, there is a maybe. You have to explore the idea that the Toronto Maple Leafs were just simply the better team. You can't just always say the Jets lost and they failed to show up. You can't say that. You have to explore the idea that the other team may have had a better game plan, or they may have come out and done the better things to win that game. And it's not just that the Jets just don't get to say, oh, well, we weren't at our best tonight every night they lose. Sometimes you lose because the other team was better. Sometimes you lose because the other team had a better game plan. I thought Craig Berube came with a really great game plan, and that's why the Jets weren't able to trap them in their zone. And I thought it was telling that the Toronto Maple Leafs put a lot of pressure on the Jets defense by getting pucks, soft dumps in behind them so that they could get on those guys. And I think it's one of the reasons a guy like Sandberg and Pionk have the night that they have tonight.
And that's totally fair. I mean, Sean, I asked, Kelly Moore asked Craig Berube what differences he saw, and Craig immediately pointed out that the Jets are a team that attacks all over the ice and tries to create 2-on-1 advantages. And what did the Leafs do today? Put the puck in a position where there were none. So was that a great game plan? Absolutely, it was a great game plan. In terms of being outcoached, I mean, the reason why I'm saying there's no maybe, the Jets clearly did not have their fastball, Sean, because they weren't skating. This is a team that is skating. Nothing the Leafs could have done could prevent the Jets from being a skating team. That's what they are.
Well, for sure, you slow a team down by getting them going in the wrong direction.
Okay, but
I didn't see a lot of examples of the Jets not trying to get in on a guy. I saw a lot of examples of the Jets. Hey, watch, there's a couple shifts. Nino Niederreiter is skating like crazy towards a guy, and then you move the puck in the other direction, and now you've skated all the way over there, and you're kind of caught in no man's land. You got to turn and you got to go in the different direction. Of course, other teams can slow a team down. Indecision slows guys down. Inability to get to the puck slows guys down. Good puck movement slows guys down. Like, I don't know. I guess that's one where we're going to have to land on different sides of this, because I'm not willing to just say the Winnipeg Jets didn't show up tonight and they didn't try very hard, and the Leafs were lucky that the Jets didn't try hard and that's why they lost.
The Leafs are a damn good team. I'm not disputing that at all. What I'm saying is, when the Jets don't generate, it's clear they don't have their legs. That's all I'm saying. The Leafs played excellent. They had a great game plan. But it's hard to blame the coach when no one is skating. To me, they didn't have anybody with jump. They had no cohesion. So Scott Arneal tried to change the lines 2 different times.
Yeah.
Once in the second, once in the third. Is that bad coaching? I don't think that's bad coaching.
Outcoached is probably not the term I'm looking for here. Here's the way I'd put it. The Jets are the team that other teams are chasing right now. The Jets are the team that are walking in with their game plan and they're like, no one can beat this game plan, right? So the Jets are the team that other teams are responding to. And I guess I would put it like this. I think Craig Berube's game plan, and we had this conversation down, we talked with another NHL coach, Ken, when we were down in Vegas at the draft, and one person said, do not sleep on how good of a game manager Craig Berube is. You're back on, Ken. It's working. And I think that I'm just going to say that I think that we saw that tonight. Anyway, we got to quickly talk about the line juggling that happened there. Talk about a line blender. We've seen some line blending in the past. This, to me, I think was the most blended of lines we've ever seen from the Winnipeg Jets. I think Ken is out of this, so I will talk about it while he tries to figure things out here. Someone had talked about it, the Jets kind of getting their biggest jump and their biggest legs once that happened, once the lines went in that direction. I was kind of blown away that the only thing they didn't touch was the fourth line. I thought it was fascinating the way they did break up the third line on this night. I was fascinated that the first place that Scott Arniel went was to Velarde, Scheifele, and Nick Ehlers. You talked about them before. I actually think the best I've ever seen a Jets line go for any period of time since the changeover, since the beginning of the Rick Bowness era. And make no mistake about it, they're still playing Rick Bowness hockey. I personally think that was the best line we've seen this team play. So him going there right away was fascinating. Moving Lowry onto a scoring line, I thought was fascinating. Ken, just a quick word on what you think he accomplished or was maybe trying to accomplish, or maybe the message he was trying to send by putting those lines together.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you're looking for a spark. That's all. I don't think it was anything to do with message sending, or I think he just basically was looking that he needed more from everyone. And, you know, in the second period when they spun the lines around, Rasmus Kapari was with Ehlers and Perfetti for a few shifts too, right? So, yeah, I mean, the Jets needed to be a heck of a lot better. They're going to have to be better against Detroit. They're going to have to be better, you know, against Columbus. But my only retort, Sean, was that, like, the Leafs played an incredibly emotional game, and then they absolutely played terribly against Columbus. So that after the Columbus game, the Leafs weren't saying were they saying they were out coached? They just had a letdown. I mean, sometimes that happens. So,
Columbus knocked off Edmonton tonight.
Right. So that's what I mean. So they're playing really hard. So it's a hard league to win in.
I honestly, one thing I've really admired about the Jets over the last number of years is they quite often say you got to give those other guys credit. This is one of those nights. I'm not down with the whole we lost tonight, we didn't play our best, and all this kind of stuff. I think it's an easy cop out rather than saying, look, we played kind of to where we've been and they did this, we need to reach another level. I'd rather hear that. I'm just not for, I'll be honest with you, that's just not what I saw tonight. I didn't see a Winnipeg Jets team that wasn't trying. I saw a Winnipeg Jets team that came out was struggling structurally against a team that came in with a good plan, couldn't really get it going. When they did get it going, they did so when they had the clear advantage on the ice. And the one other place they did it was when they juggled those lines, and that worked out. And I think everyone will agree with me when I say that those change in lines really paid off, really captured the momentum for the team. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. So Ken, let's jump into it. Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, not a lot of got you covered moments in this game, and
there was one.
There is one, and people are going to think that I'm trying to defend the player. I'm not defending the player's game, but during the game,
Ken's right about this, by the way. Ken's right.
Pionk had a nice breakdown or break up where he had to slide and break up what probably looked like a backdoor tap in. So I'm pointing this out on a night where I'm saying loudly and clearly he played probably his worst game of the year, and he still made the type of play that we look at when it comes to Johnston Group plays of the game, because on a night when you're -5, sometimes you can check out of the game. Instead, Neil Pionk broke up a play to ensure that his goaltender, who battles for him every night, didn't get another notch on the goals against. So I'm using that as my Johnston Group got you covered play of the game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's what I said right off the bat. Where Ken was going, if anyone's trying to accuse him of just trying to do this to defend him, that was a phenomenal play. I was actually surprised he was able to get him to get that puck redirected. Great play by Neil Pionk. And so that's our Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is the got you covered play of the game by the Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. Moving on to the keg save of the game. What do you got?
You go. You got the best answer here.
Well, I don't know. I actually think it. Someone changed my mind somewhere.
Oh, right. Yes.
I don't know where it happened or where I saw it, or maybe it was you. But it was the one-timer save by Stolars. Was it
right,
not
yes.
on
Connor?
On Kyle Connor. It was the one kind of gasp-inducing save of the game. Now, maybe the gasps were induced because there were so many Leafs fans in there, but that's what I got. You got the same, or you got something different?
Yep. No, I know that you sent me the Hellebuck save on Domi, but I definitely do think, just in terms of, again, there are some folks in the chat room I know that are not fans of the timely save, but the timeliness of the save by Stolars in a night where his team was dominating at the time, I thought it was an important one, and that's why I'm going to go with you.
Yeah, I think that's a safe one. I think that's a safe one for sure. But it doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what I think either, Ken. What matters is what you at home think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You are automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last, and the winner from last show, that would be Eric Horleafson. Eric Horleafson, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me your email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And Ken, that brings us to the TCB, the Trans-Canada Brewing Company hashtag lamplighter of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's got to be the Kyle Connor bar down special. Great cross ice pass, and yeah, his other one was nice too. But I just thought that his ability to beat Stolars up top. I mean, the one timer is a nice goal, but we see that fairly commonly. And again, just the release by Connor on the, I think it was the 4-1 goal that got them into the game on the power play. To me, that was just his ability to accept the crispy cross ice pass from Scheifele and just go bar down before Stolars could get over there. Reminiscent of the one on Binnington where, there wasn't a lot of room there, and still he found some room to get it. And just so folks in their hockey pools know, it was not a hat trick for Kyle Connor as it was announced in the building. The last goal went off Velarde's pants, I think, so that one belongs to Velarde. So Kyle Connor, 9 goals. I'm taking his 8th as the lamplighter tonight.
Yeah, I think it's there. Do you think that he's done something to change his release?
Not really. I mean,
you don't think
always
so?
looking. Well, I mean, he's always looking for more different ways to score. I've had this conversation with Kyle. It seems like at the start of every year. I'm not sure if I think it's just he just is going to maybe places goalies aren't expecting right now, maybe. And I just got it off fairly. I'm not sure. I mean, we'd have to ask him. And Kyle doesn't like to expand on certain things about shooting, how he shoots and where he shoots. But
I know.
I don't see anything different personally. You do? You think there's a little bit of a difference in the release, or?
I feel like he's got this strangely abbreviated snapshot now where he doesn't follow through on the puck, and the ability to not follow through hides where the puck is going. So Ken, there was a time during training camp, you and I were watching this. He did this. I've talked about this. He did this where he was taking the pass with Davis Payne, and then he was shooting, and it was like it reminded me the way the puck was hitting the net of like being in a boxing gym and a heavyweight hitting a punching bag, and it making that sound that you're like, oh my God, imagine that being a human. when I'm taking a look and I'm thinking, imagine that hitting a goaltender's mask or something like that. To me, I feel like he's whipping the puck. He's doing it in a way where he's not really following through. And I think it's one of the reasons why, if I'm right about this, go look at some of his goals and take a look at how often the goalie is reacting in a way that it looks like he thinks the puck is going to a different spot. I think it's happening. I'm going to take a look, and we may even do a little something on
Homework
it.
assignment for Wednesday's broadcast. I like it.
There you go. Exactly. Anyways, that's I agree with you, Ken. That's my TCB lamplighter of the game. You do, or sorry, it doesn't matter what we think. Matters what you think. Send us your TCB lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack brought to you by our friends at Transcanada Brewing Company, where you can right now get $2 off an 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. All you have to do is head on down to Transcanada Brewing Company. Don't cheat yourself. Grab some pizza, grab some food, grab a lot of the different kinds of beer. If you do get a case of Lamplighter right now, you get that free roll of stick tape regardless. The winner from our last show of the Lamplighter, that would be Kim Sawchuk. Kim Sawchuk. I don't think she's won for a while. Kim, you know what to do. Direct message me. I think Kim will give it to her brother Dale, because Kim is too nice a person. She gives it to her brother Dale, and I don't know that Dale deserves it. Regardless, Kim, direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will send you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Ale, brought to you by our friends at Transcanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. That's it, Ken. Next time you see me, I'm going to be down in Detroit. We're going to be opening up that hockey game to see if the Winnipeg Jets can go 9-1-0 on the season. Great job by you on this night. The chat room always on fire, as it always is. Let me say this before we get out of here, though. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please, we implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Arctic Spas, Transcanada Brewing Company, the Keg, and of course, the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. And thank you, Ken. We will reconvene.
Safe travels, my friend. Have fun in Detroit.
Same time, same place. Well, not same time, but same place Wednesday after the Jets play the Detroit Red Wings. Bye, everybody.